Hello, everybody. It is Sunday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined for the Steelers postgame show here on the PG Steelers YouTube channel and postgazette.com by Post-Gazette sports columnist Paul Zeise after a huge 27-22 Steelers victory against the Baltimore Ravens, puts them back in the division lead. A lot to digest from this one, Paul. It looked improbable at times. It looked very probable at times. In the end, they make the plays that they need to win the game. We're going to get into all of the finer points in a second. Before we get started, though, just want to remind you that this show is presented by FanDuel. We also want to thank Pella Windows and Doors. There's no better place to get new windows and doors installed in your home than Pella, who can help you save on energy costs year-round. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella Windows and Doors to find the right product for your home and budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning on your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. Paul, let's start with the controversial no touchdown there at the end of the game. I think we can talk about how the Steelers played today. We can talk about the offense. We can talk about the defense, and we absolutely will. But that was the play of the game. It goes the Steelers' way by like a fraction of a step there, with Isaiah likely getting the ball knocked out of his hands, reminiscent of the Jesse James touchdown against the Patriots a handful of years back, where what is a touchdown? What's not a touchdown? He got 2 feet down. He had control, but they needed him to complete the process of the catch. What was your read on that play and whether it deserved to go to the Steelers?
Yeah, it's an asinine play. It really is. It's so stupid. I'm sorry. The Steelers got absolutely lucky. The referees really smiled on them. That is a touchdown in every single game that I've ever watched. And if it's not a touchdown, then I don't know what we were watching. He got both feet down. He had the ball. He was in the end zone. I mean, this thing where we go to – and here's where people – and again, I had no money on this game, so don't take this the wrong way. I swear to God I did not bet a single dime on this game. But this is where bettors think games are fixed, because you can go to New York and come back, and again, a play like that, some games they might say, hey, that's a touchdown, and some games they might say, hey, that's not a touchdown. Just like the Aaron Rodgers, interception thing. He kind of had it, but he really didn't kind of have it. They really were wrestling for the ball until they both fell down on the ground. I mean, both of those calls went the Steelers' way. God smiled on the Steelers today. I don't ever want any Steelers fan to ever inbox me again or cry again about the referees screwing them, because they got handed a game today. So please do not ever do that again. All I'm saying to you, Adam, is it's funny to me when Steeler fans and any home fan, really, they only want to point out when the calls go against them. When the calls go their way, then it's all of a sudden the referees got it right. In this particular case, I think if I were a Baltimore person, I would feel like we got screwed.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I didn't have a problem with the Rodgers call on the shared tackle thing. I thought it was clear, shared possession. That's the rules. I do have a problem with how the NFL has litigated the process of a catch. You're right. That's a touchdown, but maybe by the letter of the law, it's not. And they still, in these big moments, Paul, they just have trouble defining what a catch is, to the point that it's not credible with a lot of people, and I completely get it. So I'm sure there will continue to be reaction to that in the coming days. It'll shape the conversation in the week to come. Let's just get into how the Steelers played today, though. Paul, we'll start with the offense here, because I thought if they lost, I was going to lead with the defense. If they won, I was going to talk about the difference we saw on offense today. The old man was cooking. I guess let's just start with Aaron Rodgers. Did a lot of great things, a lot of downfield passing. Can we put to rest who's going to get the ball the rest of the way down the stretch? Because you and I were on the show last week saying he looks old, he looks hurt, he looks like he's beaten down by the season, by being just turned 42 this week. Turned in a great performance today, Paul.
Very good. He threw the ball over the place. I'm not sure what the Ravens were doing on defense against them. One of the things that's amazing, Adam, is we found out if you actually do things a little differently than you do every single week, you might catch the other team off guard. It's amazing how that works. First play of the game, they throw the ball 50 yards down the field. I'm sure the Ravens thought, okay, they're going to hand it off, or they're going to do one of these dumb little 4-yard passes, right? I'm sure that's what they did. If you looked at the way that they played that play, my point is, why does it take You lose in a couple games, and then we come out and we put together a game like this where, oh my goodness, now we're going to play really, really aggressive early on. We're going to go after. We're going to let our quarterback throw the ball and all the other good stuff that we saw today. My question is, will we see it again next week in Miami against Miami, or will it be back to, basically handcuffing your quarterback and making him make throws, that have no chance? And really, to be honest, in the second half, they hung on for dear life because, as always, they get very conservative on offense when they get a lead, and they let the other team crawl back into it. And to be honest, because of that fact, okay, here's why I would tell you John Harbaugh's an idiot, okay? He's another guy that needs to be fired, but that's a different story for a different day, okay? 27-22, 4th and 2, you have 3 timeouts and the 2-minute warning. Why are you not kicking a field goal there? I don't understand that at all. You know that coming out, the Steelers are probably going to go 3 and out again, and then guess what? Now you just got to get into field goal range to win the game. I'm going to tell you this much right now. If I was Baltimore's owner, I'd have fired him after losing in the playoffs last year. I'd have fired him after losing in the playoffs the year before, but I certainly would have fired him after today. I mean, because to me, these guys can't add. I get it. You're 4th and 2 and everything else, but you're the worst team in the red zone. Or I'm sorry, the 30th out of 32 teams in the red zone. You don't score touchdowns. But guess what? You have enough time with 3 timeouts and a 2-minute warning to get the ball back and get into field goal range and win the game with a field goal. Anyway, ran over.
Oh, I absolutely agree with that, Paul. There's this the aggression in the NFL has kind of swung the other way. You knew that the Steelers were going to go into kind of the posture that they did, and sure enough, Baltimore got the ball back. If they have 3 more points, they have a chance to win the game. So definitely a terrible decision there. I think you got to credit Mike Tomlin a couple times for kicking field goals. We're down deep. They were down 23 and 28-yard field goals. There were times it felt like he wanted to be aggressive today, and he checked himself a little bit. So, and that was the difference in the game. Those 2 kicks that they take versus the kicks that Baltimore left on the table. So, Paul, let's talk a little bit more about this passing game. Aaron Rodgers finishes 23 of 34 for 284 yards, 8.4 yards per attempt. Had the passing touchdown, but obviously the rushing touchdown as well. Finishes with a passer rating of 103.1. Huge day for DK Metcalf. 7 catches, 148 yards on 12 targets, 21.1 on the average per catch. So a great day for this passing offense. Was it as simple as they wanted to throw downfield, so they did, and they had success? Or, has it been more complicated than that? Because to my mind, it looked like that's what they wanted to do today, so they did it, and they didn't overcomplicate it or overthink it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I think one of the biggest things about it is, they have 12 targets today for DK Metcalf. It was pretty clear that they decided, listen, we're going to use our guy the way that he should be used. I think that was a big part of it, Adam. They were not afraid to, go down the field a little bit more. They were not afraid to throw the ball. They were not afraid to say, listen, we're struggling to run the ball. Because, listen, at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at it right now, if you look at it real quick, they got outrushed 217 to 34. That's not much different than what happened last week. It was like 249 to like 250 or something. I mean, it's like 249 to like 50. So my thing is, if you're not going to be able to run the football and you got a Hall of Fame quarterback and you got a $30 million receiver, figure out a way to make him the focal point of your offense. And they did that today. But again, I think the other part of it is, Adam, they were different today. They were a little bit more aggressive today. They looked down the field a little bit more today. It wasn't the same old boring offense really until they got a lead. Then once they got a lead, it was like, okay, now all of a sudden we got a lead. We're going to go back to the way we did things where it didn't work out. So what my point is here is it's amazing when you let your quarterback throw the ball a little bit, when you go and you allow your best playmaker to get down the field and try and make plays. It's amazing how that works. Where, I'm glad we want to throw the ball to our 15 tight ends who all get 1 yard after the catch. But at the end of the day, you want your playmakers making plays, and that's what they allowed to happen today. And that's what we need to see more of if they're going to have a chance to win and win big, down the stretch here.
Well, for me, Paul, it was they went to DK Metcalf even when it wasn't always working. Yes, they got that big first pass completion, and that kind of set things up. But if you look, he only caught 7 of the 12 targets, which meant there were 5 incompletions. And I think at one point in the first half, it said he caught 5 out of 10. So you were missing half the time you were throwing to him, but you were getting a lot of value out of the times that you did. And that's what we have not seen them do at times. They'll go to DK a couple times. If they miss early in the game, he kind of just disappears for long stretches of the game. And they seem to decide today, we're going to give him wide receiver 1 targets. The type of thing we've seen them do in recent years with George Pickens. They haven't done that all year with DK Metcalf. And I thought they put him in position to do to make more plays, because we've seen them kind of try to throw those combat catch, go ball types of routes, and they had him open today. And I think that was a big key for him as well, individually.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the one thing is they let him do their thing. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's important that they had combination of routes. You know, the two veteran new guys, to me, I think it's one of those things where those two guys, you heard Aaron Rodgers after the game talk about how they sort of taught the younger guys how to play a little bit. They sort of were able to, mentor guys, and even that included DK Metcalf. I don't know if I buy all that. I mean, the bottom line is they combined for 1 catch for 4 yards. But I do like the fact that this offense was built around Aaron Rodgers today, at least. They let Aaron Rodgers be the guy that's the focal point of the offense. They didn't run their head into a brick wall 50 times, like they like to try and do sometimes. They didn't throw a bunch of squatty, short little passes. They actually really were aggressive offensively, at least for the first quarter, 2 quarters and a half. So to me, learn from that, right? Let's learn from that, and let's build on that.
Yeah, I thought the new receivers made a difference as well, Paul, just the threat of them. And that's what we've been talking about at various points in time of, can you just credibly threaten defenses? I'm not going to say Adam Thielen is, any kind of, he's a former Pro Bowler. I don't think he's that quality of a receiver now, or he wouldn't have ended up dropping into the Steelers' hands. Marquez Valdes-Scantling was on the practice squad for a month. These guys are not any great shakes, but they do threaten defenses enough to kind of open up the space that they did for DK Metcalf. What did you think of being aggressive in that way? Because obviously Adam Thielen was only here midweek, didn't have a whole lot of time to adapt to the offense. You bench Roman Wilson, don't even activate him for this game, a guy that you've expressed confidence in at various points in time. Was that a solid coaching decision in your mind?
Well, I don't understand. The thing with Roman Wilson is, Adam, he's healthy, isn't he? Am I wrong? It was a healthy scratch. So either they haven't done a good job of developing the right way, maybe, or Aaron Rodgers went to them and said, listen, I want veteran guys. I want guys that know what they're doing. I don't want to have, what I'm saying? I'm tired of watching some of these other guys who don't know what they're doing. I want veteran guys in there. Maybe one or the other, but to me, it's a very bad sign that in week, 13 or whatever it is, 12, 13, that you have Roman Wilson, who is supposed to be maybe one of the next guys that's one of your playmakers, and you have him not playing in a game like this. So have you developed him well? Is it just that the quarterback doesn't have faith in him? Is it because the quarterback would rather, be the guy who, relies on some veterans that he feels good about? I don't know. But to me, it's a really bad sign in my mind that Roman Wilson couldn't get any run in this game.
Well, I think you can slice it 2 ways. One of them, Paul, is you and I have been on our weekly shows at various points in the last 3 years saying they're not good enough at wide receiver. They need to get a wide receiver. I think that has been the most pronounced this season because you haven't gotten that from Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin, and defenses have been able to kind of stack things against DK Metcalf. And look, you plug in some veteran guys today who have some level of resume, and look what a difference it makes. So, yeah, I think you can indict the Steelers for the stubbornness of going into the season saying we don't need a wide receiver 2 in the classical sense. We're happy with the guys we got. But I think I can give them credit and say, well, at least they weren't too stubborn to let the season slip away in a game like this.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest thing about it is, I feel like one of the things that Mike Tomlin is always very good at is getting his teams to understand the sense of urgency that they need to play with, right? And so maybe part of it is putting those veteran guys in there with sort of a message that, hey, we have to win this game. And I'm going to, all hands on deck here. I'm going to put the guys in there that I think give us the best chance. I don't care if you've been here for a week. I don't care if you've been here for 6 months. You know what I mean? You're going to be a guy. We're going to decide one way or the other whether or not we're going to try and win this game. And to me, we're going to put the best guys out there. I don't understand why Roman Wilson, who's a guy you're trying to, groom to be one of your better players, going forward, is a guy who is not on the field in a game like this.
She's just not one of their best options. I mean, that's how I look at it. And, would you like to see him further down the road in his development? Absolutely. Could you also say he lost his rookie year and that this has been his rookie year? But we've played that same game with Calvin Austin the third as well. They play similarly at times in terms of their size, their speed. So are you seeing that same storyline play out yet again? We don't know yet. We'll find out. But I did think the roster choice was interesting today. Paul, how did you feel about how they used the running backs today? Because you mentioned at the top, not a great day running the football. 15 yards on 4 carries for Kenneth Gainwell. He averaged 3.8. Jaylen Warren got 8 touches for 13 yards, averages 1.6. But both of them did put their imprint on this game in the passing game. They had the short pass to Jaylen Warren that ended up going for the 38-yard touchdown. He finished with 3 catches for 49 yards. Kenneth Gainwell has 6 catches for 27. They were very active today, Paul, and I think it was to the game plan's credit that they found ways to use them even when the running game wasn't working as playmakers, because I think they're both 2 of the best playmakers, and if you're not going to have the running game working, you at least want to get the ball in their hands as receivers, and it worked for them today.
Can I just say this? Please, Pitt fans and people, stop texting me. I don't give a rat's ass right now about Pitt and their military bowl or wherever they're going. I'm having all these people, Adam, they're texting me all this outrage about Pitt's bowl selection. Do you really think right now on Steelers Sunday I care? I don't. And guess what? If it was Monday, I still wouldn't care. Okay, now, what were you asking me there? Sorry. I mean, my phone keeps blowing up with these idiots who want to know about the military bowl. I don't care, but go ahead.
Getting the ball to Warren and Gainwell in the passing game, even when it wasn't working in the running game. Yeah.
My thing about it is, Warren, you know what? You throw the ball to him outside, a little bit in those little swing passes. He's pretty good in open space at getting some yards and everything else. It's probably an indictment of their running, of their run blocking, that they can't run the ball. But by the same token, we've been saying it all year, Adam. I mean, these are 2 guys that are probably just sort of guys. And I think that's probably the problem, honestly. But when you look at what they've done, both of them, I would tell you, contribute every week to the Steelers winning. Be it in the passing game, or Kenneth Gainwell always seems to get, a couple extra yards on like the most key play of the game that they need him to get like a few extra yards. Gainwell obviously is a guy who returns kicks. I mean, at the end of the day, to me, I'll be honest with you. I look at it and I basically say these 2 guys, probably the offensive line isn't helping them out, and they're probably just sort of average running backs anyway. But both of them make enough plays every week to give the Steelers a chance to win that I can overlook, when they have 34 yards combined or something rushing today. I can overlook that.
Yeah, and someone's mentioning in the comments, Paul, the pitchbacks are terrible for our runners. Twiggy Tuck in the comments. I agree sometimes, Paul, that some of these runs just are so laborious and telegraphed to me. Whenever I see 74 coming across the rotation, Spencer Anderson, even my slow football brain is like, well, this is definitely a run, and it's a question of whether the Steelers are going to get it blocked or not, but the other team knows it's coming. I understand why they like the heavy packages. They've had success with it. I believe on the Gainwell touchdown, they had kind of run that 74 in motion type of thing. They just seem to go to that well way too often, Paul, and they're not catching teams napping as much as they would probably like to.
No, and I'll tell you this, by the way, Adam, in case you care, because I know you're a Penn State guy, you got Penn State and Clemson in the Penn State Bowl. But anyway, I think that just came across. But, I mean, again, I think one of the things I like about the duo that they have is that they both give the Steelers something a little bit different to look at. And therefore, when you look at how you're going to defend the Steelers, it's a little different when Gainwell's in there than it is when Warren's in there. It really is. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think you've got a complementary, two guys that complement each other well. Again, I don't think either one of them is Barry Sanders in his prime, but I think they both are good enough football players that make winning football plays that, they're a part of the equation. But again, your best player is Aaron Rodgers on offense. Give him the ball.
Let's get out of here talking about the tight ends, Paul. Darnell Washington takes the injury, so that kind of solved the problem for a lot of people of getting Pat Freiermuth more snaps. Some people have been screaming for it. He finishes the game, 2 catches, 9 yards, 4.5 yards per catch. He had 3 targets on the day. How did you feel about the tight end usage given the circumstances? I don't have a whole lot of complaints about it because you were getting the ball to your best playmaker and you were getting the ball in the hands of the running backs, and they were doing things that these tight ends have not done all season. I think Pat Freiermuth is going to get his matchups at times, and you're going to see what he did in that Cincinnati game earlier in the year or even that Cincinnati game going back to last season. But I'd much rather be able to run the game through your best playmakers, and those guys have not proven to be that, and I think we saw that today.
No, I absolutely agree. I mean, Adam, we've been talking about it all year. It's nice that you got 3 tight ends. Well, actually 4, at least one that your fourth one who seems to be a good quarterback sneak guy or whatever he is. My point to you is this. I look at it like, when we talk about all these different things, okay, you want the ball in the hands of your best playmakers. And your tight ends are just kind of complimentary guys. Calvin Austin made a big catch today, down the field. These are the guys you want to try and throw the ball to more. You want the guys who have the ability to make big plays and that are playmakers to get the bulk of the catches. So, to me, Jonnu Smith, I think, had 1 target. Pat Freiermuth had a couple of targets. Darnell Washington, I know got hurt, but he had a few targets. But for the most part, you want your playmakers to have the ball. And that's my point about this Steelers offense. I think today they were not predictable. They were aggressive. They really went after it the way you're supposed to go after it. So I'm not sure what we're talking about when we're talking about these things.
Well, we're going to talk about the defense here in a second. Before we do, we want to thank another couple of sponsors here. Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci are Pittsburgh's mesothelioma and asbestos attorneys. They've been standing up for victims of mesothelioma and asbestos cancers. They have over 85 years of experience. They know how to uncover the truth, and they have the experience you need and the commitment your family deserves. They've recovered millions for individuals affected by mesothelioma and other cancers due to asbestos exposure. Call them toll-free at 1-877-227-6558 or visit them online at sdklaw.com. We also want to remind you to check out the Steelers' latest AFC North odds over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Our friends over there are going to have everything updated after this big Steelers win that puts them in control of the division, Paul, but certainly with 4 games to go, a lot of things could still happen with the Steelers team that's been wildly inconsistent this season. So whatever your vibes are, head over to the FanDuel Sportsbook and either bet on the Steelers or fade them if you don't believe that they can make this stick down the stretch. All right, Paul, let's get into it with the defense here. Over 200 yards rushing allowed again. A big chunk of them came on the one long run by Keaton Mitchell. That was 55 of the 217 yards. Derrick Henry was not particularly efficient. 25 carries for 94 yards, 3.8 per carry. Lamar Jackson had 7 carries for 43. So I think it was kind of a mixed bag overall. Paul, you did some good things against Derrick Henry. You did not get dominated like you did against him in the playoffs, and certainly not like you got dominated by James Cook. But you had some untimely failures as well, including that long run and some times where Jackson was able to slip away and make plays with his legs. How do you grade the run defense today, knowing what the total was, but also knowing what you saw with your eyes at times?
Well, I mean, I think, one of the things that's weird, and again, I don't want to get off on a tangent, but all the things we talk about with Mike Tomlin in this town, I can't imagine why, or I can't imagine that people in Baltimore aren't ready to run John Harbaugh out of town. I mean, because honestly, the Ravens are the stupidest team I've ever watched. Every time I watch them, I say it. They're the dumbest team on the planet. I think Lamar Jackson makes some really bad decisions with the football. But by the same token, and late in the game when they started deciding, okay, we're going to start running the football and we're going to start really committed to trying to run the football, all of a sudden they had some success. But it was too late almost at the time. I thought that they ran the ball really reasonably well, 40 carries, 217 yards. I thought the Steelers at times were able to get the better of them, but it seemed like when they needed some tough yards, they got them. But my complaint is I thought they tried too hard to continually try to get Lamar Jackson to drop back. And here's the other thing, Adam. They probably would have had 50 or 60 more yards later, right? If they decided at some point they were going to block T.J. Watt on the backside, which they never seemed to do, and he was running behind the play and catching the guys. Like at some point, maybe block him and you give yourself a chance. I thought the Steelers were okay against the run. I mean, it wasn't great. Obviously, we're grading on a scale because they've gotten run all over at times. But to me, when they needed to get some stops, they did. I'm not sure what happened on the third down play in that last drive with the Ravens where, it seemed like half of them didn't know what they were supposed to do. There was an illegal formation, right? And there was a tackle in the backfield. Again, that's the kind of play you cannot screw up, right? 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 1.5 or whatever it is, game on the line. You cannot have an illegal formation, half the guys not knowing what the snap count is, and everything else that happened to blow that play up. So to me, you know what? The Ravens are the Ravens. They're going to make stupid plays. I thought what the Steelers did well was at key times they made plays.
Yes, and certainly, finally at the very end, it was getting ugly in that fourth quarter, but you did make the plays you needed to. And I mean, Joey Porter Jr. is on that list, gets a couple of penalties today, but has the knockout of Isaiah Likely that basically changes the outcome directly. So a great hustle play from him. Paul, what level of credit do you give the Steelers for what they did to Jackson in the passing game today? I'll read the stat line for you here. 19 of 35, 219 yards, 6.3 yards per attempt, had the touchdown, had the, I thought, pretty horrific interception, took 2 sacks, had a passer rating of 71.0. I thought that was where the Steelers looked best today, not necessarily against the run, but doing what they've been able to do to Lamar Jackson at different points over the years. Obviously, the Steelers didn't come out on the right end last year late in the season, but these Ravens are not those Ravens, and they kind of got back to what they've done to Lamar Jackson historically today.
Well, one of the things about Lamar Jackson, at least today, and pretty much every time I watch him, he has a really hard time taking what the defense gives him. He's always looking to try and make some huge hero play. And as a result, he takes a lot of bad sacks. He throws a lot of bad interceptions. He fumbles more than he should. And it's probably the reason why I say every single year that Lamar Jackson is not the guy to win a Super Bowl for you. I think he's a dynamic talent. I think he's incredible at what he does. But the bottom line is, when the Steelers started putting pressure and really started coming after him, even, as much of a blowhard as he is and how much I can't stand listening to him, even Tony Romo was pointing out, listen, that's a play you get the ball out quick. And he was showing the underneath receivers who were open. Lamar Jackson doesn't like to do that. So I think one of the things that's important is if they can't block for him, which they couldn't today, he's going to take bad sacks, make interceptions, and throw bad passes and all the things he does because he's not what I would call a great decision maker. And so the Steelers take advantage of that every time they play him, it seems like, except for the playoff game last year where the Ravens clearly had a really good offensive line and, were able to dominate in some ways. Up front, the bottom line is the Steelers do it to him pretty well. What have they won? This is what, about 6 out of 8 games or something they've won against him now?
Yeah, something like that. It was just the end of last season where he had, kind of the success, but otherwise the Steelers have dominated him. And to reinforce your point, Paul, Zay Flowers finishes with 8 catches for 124 yards for Baltimore. Obviously a good day for him. Baltimore's next highest receiver in terms of yardage was Isaiah Likely with 4 catches for 25 yards. There was no other Baltimore receiver above 25 yards for the day, and that kind of points to kind of a laser focus on Zay Flowers and not seeing the field with some of the other guys nearly as well. He missed on a lot of those passes too, even when he was targeting those guys. I don't know what's happened to Rashad Bateman this year. Had the huge drop there in front of Joey Porter that would have been probably a walk-in touchdown. That receiving core has always never been great. It's always been kind of a weakness. DeAndre Hopkins was supposed to come in and help fix it. He was basically nowhere today. No catches for no yards. Had that one target along the sideline where he didn't get his feet down. But, it just does not seem like he's seeing the field very well right now.
And again, I every time I watch him, Adam, that's kind of what I see from him. I know he's a dynamic talent. I know he's an incredible football player. I know that when he's healthy, he does things that nobody else on the field can do. But I'm telling you, when it comes to being a quarterback, the difference between him and Aaron Rodgers makes good decisions with the football, period. Aaron Rodgers checks it down. Aaron Rodgers throws it away. Aaron Rodgers doesn't take bad sacks, very, very rarely takes bad sacks, doesn't throw interceptions. I mean, that's the difference between a guy who understands your role as a quarterback. And even though you're a superstar, you know what? Sometimes you have to be willing to take the stuff that is there for you to take. And if that means, smaller plays or shorter plays, if that means dumping it off or throwing it away, that's what it means. And I think that's the most important thing. It almost always goes back to that with me when I look at quarterbacks that win big and lose big, or losing big, in big spots all the time. It's almost always decision-making.
Paul, Cam Heyward, TJ Watt were under the microscope this week. They have been for the last handful of games, have not played super well. I thought they were noticeable today. They definitely didn't finish the plays. They got in Lamar Jackson's grill a fair amount, didn't get him to the ground, I think, quite enough to put this game away when it probably should have been. However, I at least noticed them today. What did you think of how those guys played?
Yeah, I thought they showed up. They both showed up. I mean, this defense is predicated 100% on their stars being stars, right? I mean, if we're going to talk about stars, obviously Alex Highsmith had a really big day too. That's the biggest thing. That's the difference with this team. When you have your best players who are all basically in your front seven in many ways, when they start making plays, it makes it a whole lot easier for everything else that's happening. So I look at it and I say basically I like what we saw from them today. You need to see more of it, but I like what we saw from them today because I think those are the guys that have to show up on tape all the time.
Paul, let's go big picture here in the final minutes after this one. Did we see the Steelers prove themselves as the best team in the division today? Because regardless of where they fit in the AFC pecking order, with Cincinnati's loss to Buffalo, I think we can probably put them to bed. I believe they're now down 3 games to the Steelers with 4 to play.
Right.
It's going to take a miracle for them to get back in this, even though they looked kind of dangerous up in Buffalo today. They kept showing the updates on the CBS broadcast. Honestly, I thought the Steelers were the best team, and I don't know what that means for them long-term, big picture. We talked last week that even if you win the division, you're probably going to be one of the easier outs in the playoffs. I don't know that they really did anything today to change my opinion in that way. I think if they make the playoffs, they will be a 4th seed. They might get a home playoff game, but I think they will be the worst team in this AFC field. But I do think that they're better than the Ravens as of today.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think they're better than the Ravens in a couple of areas. I think they actually are smarter than the Ravens. Let's start there. I think that they probably don't, they're better at not beating themselves than the Ravens. I think the Ravens defense is really, 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 really just kind of porous. Not that the Steelers have been great all the time, but I'm not a big fan of the Ravens. I think they're honestly, I would take Mike Tomlin 7 days out of the week, twice on Sunday over Harbaugh. I mean, I just feel like they're better coached than the Ravens. I think that Aaron Rodgers is not as dynamic as Lamar Jackson, but he's a better quarterback, right? And I think their defense is just a little bit better. I think that's what it comes down to.
Paul, let's talk about the back half of the AFC, though, because it is going to be relevant that if the Steelers are able to do what they need to do to finish off this division, which teams they're better than in this wild card race. They flashed some of them up on the screen. Buffalo's at 9-4 now. I think we saw last week that the Steelers are not better than that team. Chargers are at 8-4. The Colts lost today to Jacksonville. I think the Steelers can beat some of these teams. Paul, wouldn't you say that if they can keep hopping up the pecking order a little bit here, and it's not inconceivable that they could jump Jacksonville for the 3rd seed. I think they're now down 2 games with 4 to play. Jacksonville played well today, but you could see the Steelers doing it with the schedule they have remaining. How do you think the Steelers match up if they're able to get a home game against one of these lower seeds? Could they beat the Chiefs? Could they beat the Texans? Could they beat the Colts again? Could they beat the Chargers with the benefit of home field?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them beating the Bills. As it is right now, the Bills are the 5 seed, they're the 4 seed. I don't see them beating the Bills. I just don't. I think Josh Allen is so much better than anybody on the Steelers, and I think that what we saw last week was a beat up, not injured Bills team that came into the Steelers' place. I think that the team that would come in, 3 or 4 weeks is probably going to be a lot healthier. I don't see them beating the Bills in the playoffs. But all those other teams, the thing about Houston is they're interesting is they're really coming on right now because their defense is so good. Really, really good. Their defense is one of the best defenses, and, that could be interesting, the Steelers' offense trying to go against the Texans' defense. But to me, I look at the Chargers, who else is in this mix? What would be interesting is, what about Kansas City? What if they get into the mix? There's some interesting matchups for the Steelers. I hate them against the Bills. I just do. And I'm not sure I'd pick them against Patrick Mahomes either if that were to come to fruition. The Texans' defense would scare me because I think that defense is really, really good. And, it could cause a real problem for the Steelers. But I mean, if they played the Chargers again, I think they could beat the Chargers. I think there's some teams in there that mix that there's no question they would have a chance to beat. So, we just have to see how it all falls in. How it all falls and where it all goes. But my point is, depending, I think, as of right now, again, I don't like them against the Bills at all.
Paul, let's get into some final thoughts here. I guess, first of all, what did you think of seeing Aaron Rodgers pull out the discount double check from 2010 today? I thought that was pretty funny.
Wait, what's that?
His touchdown celebration where he did the discount double check. I think someone said, I don't know how people track this, but I saw on Twitter, they said it was the first discount double check since 2013.
Well, I'll say this. Adam, if you had Aaron Rodgers' anytime touchdown, or better yet, if you had Aaron Rodgers' first touchdown, you probably made him a lot of money, right? Because I don't know that anybody really believes he's going to score a touchdown in any game, but he did. That was incredible if you think about it. That was really, just a great play by him. I thought one of the things I'll tell you is I thought he looked a lot a lot more nimble, nimble. And I thought he looked a lot more able to move. I thought he looked a lot more like, 6 years ago, Aaron Rodgers than what we've seen the last few weeks.
Yeah, do you have any level of concern? We saw Andres Pete go down with the injury, so now you're down to your third string tackle. I believe it's Dylan Cook. It worked out today. They were able to score in the second half. It definitely seemed like the Steelers kind of took advantage of the Ravens flooding a lot of guys to that side. I think on the touchdown specifically, you saw Aaron Rodgers moving guys around with the expectation that they were going to try to rush that right side hard. But over these last 4 games, if you don't get either Pete or Broderick Jones back on a reasonable timeline, what's your level of concern about this offensive line that has made a lot of strides, especially in pass protection?
Well, obviously that's a bad development. They don't really have enough people, I think, for real, to really overcome that many. A couple of real injuries there at the tackle spot. That's a tough thing. Really, that is absolutely a tough thing. So to me, they need to get one of those guys back. Not that Pete is a superstar, but I think he's better than whatever's going to be below him or behind him. And I think that's the most important thing.
Paul, before we go off here, Dolphins win today, 34-10. Is this the Steelers' most important game the rest of the way? Just in terms of they're a decent. I mean, they kind of were a terrible team early in the season, and there were talks of them firing their coach and everything. But they've kind of rallied a little bit to be vaguely relevant here down the stretch. Obviously, they played well today. The Jets are the Jets, so you can't take that too seriously. But in terms of teams that are threatening to them the rest of the way, you beat the Ravens today, you're going to get them at home. You get the Browns again. I think this is a really important one for the Steelers coming up on Monday night.
Well, I mean, and they've won 4 in a row, so it's clearly a different team than probably, we thought it would be 2 or 3 weeks ago, right? Clearly they're playing better football. They blew out the Bills. Obviously, beating Washington, New Orleans, and the Jets isn't really all that relevant. But I will say this, Adam, if you're a team that's struggling and reeling and you get a couple of wins in a row, all of a sudden you get confidence. All of a sudden, all those negative feelings maybe start going away. I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think the Dolphins will come up here and give the Steelers some fits. But by the same token, I think if the Steelers play well, don't turn it over, and do some things that they do, they'll have a good chance. It really is. It's going to be, an interesting game and an important game because, if the Steelers lose it, then all of a sudden they get right back into, that last game of the season. Now all of a sudden becomes a really big game again, probably.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for your thoughts today. Great show, as always. We got a lot more coming your way from Baltimore. Brian Batko, Ray Fittipaldo, Jerry Dulac are all down there. They will be bringing you the post-game video that they'll do either on the field or in the press box at M&T Bank Stadium. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel for that. Paul will be back Monday through Wednesday this week with his live show plus his podcast. Later in the week, I will be back for the Steelers postgame show on Monday as well. So subscribe to the channel for all of that. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out in the YouTube algorithm. We always appreciate that. And please consider subscribing to our written coverage over at post-gazette.com. Lots of coverage coming from the guys down in Baltimore as well. Help us keep the lights on. Subscribe to the website, and we will talk to you again next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.